Gasoline is now under $2.50 a gallon in much of the country. In some states, it, by the way, just hit $1.99 a gallon. And within the next 12 months, we will have opened 1,600 new electrical generating plants. A record. Prices on electricity and everything else will fall dramatically.
So you see the president there talking about his efforts to keep energy costs low as we head into the new year and beyond. One way he's pushing to make this country energy independent is to bring back old nuclear facilities. One in particular has a notorious background, 3 Mile Island. He wants to bring that back to life. I was given an exclusive tour yesterday of the reworked facility alongside Energy Secretary Chris Wright, and also the CEO and Vice President of Constellation, or excuse me, President of Constellation Energy, which now own 3 Mile Island. Watch this.
We want to lower the price of electricity in every state and across the country to benefit consumers and to bring business and AI to America.
And nuclear is part of that equation?
Central part of that, America.
1979, the power plant suffered a catastrophic partial meltdown of one of its 2 reactors. It was so bad they closed that down. But one of those reactors kept going. It was healthy enough and actually was one of the best performers in the entire country and beyond that. With the help of a $1 billion loan now from the U.S. Energy Department, the Trump administration is ready to get the power flowing again. Use that second reactor and reignite 3 Mile Island. Here is Constellation's Energy CEO, who says he's implementing new safety measures. Was there something that was unsafe about it in 1979 that has been figured out for today?
Look, I think that was the worst day we had. But the point was, I think, as Chris said, no one was injured in it. We lost a big piece of equipment, and we scared a community and a generation of people. But that was the bad things that happened. The good thing is, like in our lives, your worst events sometimes lead to enormous lessons learned, and there were thousands of lessons learned from instrumentation, process, construction of these facilities that have been embraced, and they ultimately turn the industry into being the safest.
Look, Haley, they are not going through life as an ostrich at this point. They know that there is distrust around the entire nuclear energy after what happened, but it's generational in some degree. We went inside the control room. You can see that now. There it is.
Oh,
I teased them. I said it looks like 1970s kitchen green.
Wow. Yeah, this was fascinating to me because I didn't even know the Trump administration was doing this, first of all. It's amazing to see the things they're working on when you're not even, that you don't even know. And it doesn't look new inside. I mean, it looks like the 1970s, like very weird green.
So, yeah. So what I was shown, not just told, but, they're letting me touch the largest engine that runs that twin turbine that basically fuels the whole plant. And beyond that, potentially millions of customers when they bring it back online. So these things are not new, but they are preserved in such a way that they're now embedded with artificial intelligence. That's what you don't see. Microsoft and Constellation and the federal government are in this program together now. Wow. The loan from the Trump administration is to get this to happen like an Operation Warp Speed, because otherwise it might take several years to even bring back the existing plants around the country. And forget about building a whole bunch of new ones. That could take a decade. We're behind the 8 ball on all of this because of the high price of energy, particularly in Democrat-led states. And the president made it a point to say he wants to help every state. We have to rise as an entire country now on this issue. We can't have people in hot zones and cold zones suffering at the worst parts of the year because their wind isn't enough. And 196 days of sunshine in Pennsylvania isn't going to heat or cool anybody. Right. So they know now that's not workable. Even France is finding out some of this stuff now. Like, yeah, we need to augment. So you've got 3 lanes. You've got nuclear, coal, and natural gas. Nuclear can lead because it's also going to partner with AI companies like Microsoft across the country. That's what Trump wants to do. And if they can do this expeditiously but safely, they will win back some of those who distrust, is the plan. But the new generation sees jobs. There were 500 people at that plant.
It's so fascinating to see, to Kaylee's point, you guys there in front of what looks like it is a frozen in time, almost like a mission control. And I appreciate so much how, as you've been discussing, that partnership and the innovation required, that essentially this has been this sort of discarded former tumor that all of the administration since 1979 didn't touch. And now finally we have an administration that says, in partnership with the private sector and the energy, all of these things, that we have the innovation and the vision to put America first and propel us forward, no pun intended, into that energy dominance and independence, which is so gratifying to see and exciting. What else could you share with us that we didn't yet see?
One thing that people don't realize is that after 1979, they kept that primary reactor going, that other reactor going. And they didn't shutter that until 2019. And it was over a lack of funding. Because under the Obama-Biden era, those 8 years, they had begun a process to defund these sites and put that money in renewables. And again, they didn't end up being viable unless you live someplace where you don't need much energy.
And we've seen those countries that are stuck on that renewable kick, which doesn't get very far, are in terrible shape. The United Kingdom right now, you pay 4 times as much for energy as we do in the United States. And it's about the all of the above. It's not that you exclude anything. You don't exclude nuclear. The price of fossil fuels has come way down.
Right.
It averaged $80 a barrel for oil in 2024. It's now down to $56 a barrel. That's a 30% drop in fossil fuels because of the deregulation, the drill baby drill policy of Trump. On all fronts, he's creating more energy more cheaply than it's ever had before. And that's why we are now leading the world in energy production.
I love it. We're going to get into this a little bit more right after the commercial. Stay with us. All right, more on this as you see me walking through the control room there. That is the Energy Secretary, Chris Wright. This was such an incredible day to get in there. In my lifetime, and we were just kids. Right, David? So, in our lifetimes,
I was a little more than that, but anyway.
I'm going to be nice.
That was the year I was born.
But yeah, I know, right? It's amazing you were even born. But when you go in there and you realize what we were capable of, even in the late 70s, early 80s, we're an amazing country with a whole lot of promise in every industry. So when you see one that potentially can be brought back, all I can think of, and Marie, I know you want to ask your question, or jobs. I mean, 500 at the plant yesterday. You see guys coming out, and I remember that last day just from watching the news. Walter Cronkite was on, and I was starting my little dream as a young girl about journalism, maybe. And I saw the workers, and they were just dejected when they finally could get out of that plant. Like, they were testing everybody. Yesterday, they were swinging their lunch pails. These people are employed. They see the future, and they have, from the inside out, built this with AI, with other technologies. I was told yesterday by the CEO, plant president, president, I should say, of the plant, which is now no longer 3 Mile Island. It is Crane Clean Energy Center. That what happened then couldn't happen today because of what's embedded with AI in there now.
Well, I mean, the technology in general, when it comes to nuclear power, has transitioned, had transformed so much since then. We have, you can get a very small nuclear reactor, actually, sort of a mini one, to power individual things like submarines, for example, for the military. So I think that nuclear power is much cleaner, safer for the environment than, for example, coal or fracking. So as someone who does, solar is actually the cheapest. Some clean energy technology is quite cheap now. But I think that nuclear with renewable energies and other forms of energy can really power the future here, Harris. And I think, I would love to ask you a little bit if you talked about, I think one of the ways that President Trump is fast-tracking this is to sidestep or speed up some of the regulatory pieces of this. I know his administration, that's very important to them on a number of ways.
So why do you think that? Because that's not a fact.
So some industry experts have said they are concerned about the level of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's involvement, not just here, but with some of the other plants. They're trying to talk about a couple before, I think, July 4th of next year for the anniversary of the country. So I guess one of the questions I have for you is, how much did you talk about that? I know we want to fast-track regulations, but with something that people are so nervous about,
because that's tied
important.
to safety.
Of course.
That's tied to safety. And people do have a distrust of the industry where nuclear is concerned. They just want to know more. It's not that they don't want to have it happen, particularly in that region. Right, because it's bringing back jobs. I mean, some of those jobs are 6 figures. Many of them are. So you're going to empower an entire region's economy with this. It went away in 2019 when they shuttered that second reactor.
And they're durable, right? These are
and they are very durable. Their cooling stacks are still there. They've been there my whole lifetime. So you ask an important question, though. The NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, will be a part. They have testing that they want to run through this, too. And the Energy Secretary said, look, we want to pass every test. We want to do this right. This is part of a growing idea of fast-tracking the economy more than anything else. You've got to bring down those energy prices. I mean, it is crippling people. And in the winter, the worst of it, you talk about solar, 196 days are not enough to keep many of the East Coast states warm. So if you want to bring your renewables, just don't subsidize them more than you subsidize everything else. Make it an even playing ground. That's got to happen, because you can't shutter nuclear plants because they've been defunded to try to make the renewables happen.
How soon, I don't know if you talked about this.
18 months for this,
How
2027.
soon will people start feeling that,
open it.
that help it in their pocketbook?
They're already feeling it. Can I just say the inflation report today?
Oh,
2.7%. Audible gasps on CNN. A Harvard professor.
People are still
Whoa,
not
could believe
feeling it, though.
Okay, well, inflation.
That's what got Biden in trouble.
2.7%.
They weren't
a heck of a lot
feeling it
better
at the
than
gas pump.
9.1.
You're feeling it at the gas pump.
What
and with
got
your
Biden in
energy
trouble
bills.
is that our inflation was at 9.2% at one point, and he said that inflation was not a problem.
But even when it started going down, people weren't feeling it, right?
It had to come down precipitously from 9.2%. In fact, in some cases, we're still living with those prices because bringing the inflation rate down doesn't bring the pricing down. It means the way your prices are rising are going slower. So that's going to take some time. But look, September, we were at 3%. We had a shutdown. And we can argue in all sorts of ways how much that hurt us. You're a Democrat, so let's not waste time doing that. We know what you think.
We'll argue during the break, too.
But what we can agree on is we're going in the right direction at 2.7 right before Christmas. And you know, Black Friday, Thanksgiving Friday.
It was 7% greater than the year before. It was expected to be lower. One final word on nuclear energy: fusion. Big deal on fusion today. It's
a lot going on.
That's the golden ring of nuclear energy.
More a look of that tomorrow on the Faulkner Focus, just more of the ins and outs. You saw me put my hand on that big engine. I had to ask before I did that.
Smart. Very smart.
All right.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.